We are in the citadel of Herodion. This citadel was built by King Herod. But in the time of the rebellion, in the year 70, after the destruction of the temple and the destruction of Jerusalem, the rest of the rebels, those who survived the massacre in Jerusalem, they fled. They ran to this place, to Herodion, and here they continued the war with the Roman army. We are here in the synagogue that the rebels prepared for themselves in Herodion. Originally, it was a whole part of the palace of King Herod. Here he received his guests, but the rebels who fled to Herodion made it into a synagogue. We see here the benches surrounding the synagogue, a typical synagogue from the time of the Second Temple. And here they continued the war with the Roman army. After fierce fighting here, the Roman army succeeded to enter this citadel, to break the walls and to enter. And they, of course, killed all the rebels who were here in Herodion. But the Jewish people, after the destruction of Herodion, the Jewish people did not surrender, did not give up. The war continued, and the rebels continued the war with the Roman army in another citadel, another fortified place on the eastern side of the Dead Sea, called Michvar. Come with me to Michvar, and there we shall describe the continuation of the war and the rebellion against the Roman Empire. Come with me to Michvar on the eastern side of the Dead Sea. We are now standing in the northern part of the Dead Sea. This building is a remnant of the factory that was established here about 8 years ago by two Jewish engineers, Novomaisky and Langutsky, in order to produce minerals from the Dead Sea. We can see here the mountains of Moab, of Gilad. On these mountains, there was a fortress called Michvar. It was established by the Hasmonean kings in order to protect the Jews who lived on these mountains, on the mountains of the eastern side of the Jordan River. The refugees from Jerusalem, after the destruction of the temple and the destruction of Jerusalem, they did not give up. They decided to continue fighting, and they fled to this fortress, Michvar. After several weeks of fighting, the Roman army succeeded to conquer the fortress. About 2,000 Jewish fighters were killed in that battle, but most of them, about 3,000 fighters, succeeded to flee, to escape from the fortress and continue to fight. They hid in the forests of the mountains of Gilad, and the Roman commander Bassos, he brought his army and succeeded to find them And in a battle that took place on these mountains, 3,000 Jewish fighters were killed. They decided not to yield, not to give up, but to fight until the last fighter was killed. In this battle, we can see the determination of the Jewish rebels, the Jewish fighters, not to give up, but to fight against the Roman army, against the Roman Empire. And after this battle, only one fortress remained. The last fortress that remained was Masada. Let us go from this site to the fortress of Masada, and we shall tell about the battle in Masada, there in the southern part of the Dead Sea. Come with me. We're climbing the cliff of Masada, about 200 meters above the level of the Dead Sea. In the time of the Second Temple, there was no, of course, there was no Rakevel, there was no such a vehicle, and our ancestors, they went up this cliff only through a track called the track of the snail, because of, as we see, because of the curves. And the historian Yosef ben Matityahu, he was the first to call it the track of the snake. Now we are coming to the top of the cliff, and there we shall tell the story of the heroes of Masada. Come with me to the cliff of Masada. We are now standing on the western slope of Masada. The Roman army decided to attack Masada not from the east, but from the west, because the eastern slope is much steeper than the western slope. And here we can see the remnants of the camp of the Roman army. In order to bring their machines to the wall, in order to break the wall, we can see they built a ramp. We can see the ramp going up to the wall. And after weeks of fierce battles, they succeeded to break the wall. When they succeeded to do that, they also put fire in the wall. The Jewish fighters in Masada, they built a second wall made of wood, but that wall was burnt by the Roman army. Then they understood, the Jewish fighters understood that they have no chance to succeed, to defeat the Roman army. When they came to this conclusion, they gathered all the people, men, women, and children, in the central palace of Masada, and there they received a dramatic decision. Come with me to the palace of Masada, and there we shall tell about their dramatic decision and about the historic speech of the commander of Masada, Elazar ben Yair. Come with me to the palace of Masada. We are now entering the central palace of Masada, the western palace. Here, all the people all the fighters and the families of Masada came to celebrate the Passover meal, Leil HaSeder. Here, the commander of Masada, he addressed all the people of Masada, and he told them that there is no chance to win. They are defeated by the Roman army. But instead of yielding, instead of going as captives, he suggested, he offered to them to die together as free people, as free men. This is what he said to them in his speech. Let us die as free people, so that we shall not see our wives desecrated and our children as humiliated slaves. And here they gathered, and instead of celebrating the Leil HaSeder, the Passover, they all lay down, family after family, and the 10 commanders of Masada, they passed from family to family and killed all the people of Masada. After they prayed and after they said all together, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Only 10 commanders survived, and they drew lots in order to decide who will be the last. And the last one killed the 9 commanders, and he himself fell upon his sword and died. And in the end of that night, 960 people were here, all dead. The next morning, the Roman army succeeded to enter, to break the wall and to enter, but instead of encountering resistance, there was silence. When they reached this palace, they found all the fighters of Masada dead. 2 women came from one of the pits and told them the story, told them about the speech and the decision. And this time, they did not celebrate their victory, but the commanders of the Roman army stood here and saluted to the heroism, to the courage of the fighters of Masada. This was the end of the rebellion. But this is not really the end. We shall tell the end of the story in the synagogue of Masada. Come with me to the synagogue of Masada, and there we shall tell the end of the story. Come with me to the synagogue of Masada. We are now entering the synagogue of Masada. Here in this synagogue, the fighters of Masada, here they prayed, here they learned Torah, and from this place they took the courage, they took the strength for their fighting and for their Kiddush Hashem. This synagogue was excavated and found by archaeologists who were led by the famous archaeologist Professor Yigael Yadin. But what is most interesting in this synagogue is that the archaeologists found in the synagogue a little room. This is the little room in the side of the synagogue. And what they found here many fragments of scrolls from the Bible, chapters from the Bible. they found here two scrolls that were kept preserved. In one scroll, they found the last two chapters of Deuteronomy, the speech of Moses, the last speech of Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, standing on the mountain of Nebo, and Hashem promised him to give the land of Israel to his descendants. And the second scroll was the chapter in the prophet, in the book of Ezekiel, with a vision of the dry bones. In that vision, Hashem told Ezekiel that after the long exile, the Jewish people, compared to dry bones in exile, the Jewish people would come back to the land of Israel. And again, here in the land of Israel, will become a living and an important nation, allied to all the nations. And indeed, this is what happened. The fighters of Masada, they saw only death and destruction. But we have the privilege to live in a generation which witnesses the fulfillment of the vision, the fulfillment of the promise. The Jewish people has come back to its homeland, gathered from all over the world, established its independent state. And in honor of that victory, Israel issued a medal. On one side of the medal, the one sentence from the speech of Elazar ben Yair, "We shall remain free men." On the other side, the slogan, "Again, Masada will not be defeated." And we follow that sentence, and Be'ezrat Hashem, not only Masada will not fall again, but also Gamla and Yotfat and Migdal and Yafo and Beitar and Sartaba and Herodion, and above all, Jerusalem, holy Jerusalem, will not fall again.